Arkane's 2012 immersive sim Dishonored is perhaps one of the most cleverly designed games I've ever played. Whether you're jumping across rooftops or slinking in the shadows, Arkane makes sure that you get the information you need to make informed decisions on the fly. So today I want to talk about the visual design of the game and how that helps with the communication of information to the player, and hopefully I answer the question, how does Arkane communicate through visual design? And well, I think I figured it out, and I guess it could be summed up in one word: composition. Composition is best defined with elements from film and art, but the literal definition is the artistic arrangements of the parts of a picture. So for this short scene from Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, we can discuss how the shot is framed using the rule of thirds, which is something that I will be returning to later when I discuss Dishonored specifically. But for now, this shot of Deckard in this chair is framed and composed this way because it draws our eyes specific focal points in the frame, one of which is Deckard himself. But why? Because it's on the intersecting point of the lower third, and because of that, the shot looks more purposeful, and in fact it looks better for it. Which photograph do you prefer out of these two? This one? Or maybe this one? I would assume that most people would go for this one, as it uses compositional techniques. But how does this connect to Dishonored? Well, as it turns out, Dishonored uses compositional techniques more often than I actually thought it did, or was actually possible in a medium where the player controls the camera. As a non-linear game, Dishonored has a lot to communicate, especially where objectives are primary and secondary as well as points of interest. And while a great deal of this is done through on-screen markers, a lot of it is done through visual design. For example, the Uncharted series frequently uses lighting and the colour yellow to showcase what direction to go. And of course, many other games do this as well, and Dishonored is one of them, but Dishonored is a little bit different from other games, and for one main reason. Dishonored is a stealth game, so you couldn't really use light to showcase the intended pathway because, well, light in a stealth game is an environmental hazard, and every moment spent in it is another moment that you could be seen. So as a player, you know to avoid light unless you can clear it fast enough or you already know it's safe. So Arkane Studios couldn't really rely on using light in the same way. But this doesn't mean they don't use light to showcase pathways, because they still do, but they use it to highlight the more well-treaded paths in the world. Take this view for example. Those stairs are well lit, and the lighting is obviously designed to show they are an option. But if you keep going, right next to it is a stack of crates that leads up to some pipes, and that is the safer option, as it is far more stealthy, A, and B, more tactically advantageous for you, as it allows you to get a better view of the street. And this view is what allows you to plan ahead and decide what path you're going to take, the guardhouse or the exposed well lit path. The colour of the light also matters as well. It's used much more sparsely, but it still communicates something to the player, in this case, how dangerous an area is. See how the Abbey of the Everyman's patrols are restricted solely to the white light? Well, normal city guards patrol within the orange light. Within this game, the Abbey guards are much more formidable than the normal city watch, so this lighting does communicate potential danger to the player, and thus gives the player more information to plan their movements. Lighting is only one of a few techniques that Dishonored uses to communicate information to the player, however. One prominent technique is framing, and to use an example from film again, you've probably seen a shot like this in a lot of movies. And well, this is a photography technique called frame within a frame, and it's basically just another way of guiding the audience's eyes. And yeah, Dishonored does it too, mainly through doorways, windows, and environmental framing. But I would argue that framing within Dishonored is mainly used to show if somewhere is accessible or not. If a window is open you can see through it, you must be able to get up there, and there must be something up there that is worth going to the trouble for. And most of the time there is, whether it's a rune, a bone charm, or just some loot to collect. And this is because Dishonored's level design is very interconnected with verticality. This works extremely well, of course. Pipes attached to walls on the gunwall streets effectively act as leading lines, another compositional technique, which works exactly how it sounds. These pipes often lead somewhere or over an area, and because of their height, they give you a bird's eye view of the surrounding area, which lets you plan with more information. Let's take a look at a later game level and highlight specifically what the visual design is communicating to the player. The second mission of the game, Golden Cap, takes place in and around the Golden Cap brothel, which as you can imagine is a fairly self-contained area. And since our targets are two rich aristocrats, this is a hostile environment and it's up to the player to figure out how best to navigate it, whether through brute force or through stealth. From this high position on a rooftop across the street, we can see a couple things that can inform a potential pathway through this section of the level. For starters, on the lower left hand side of the building we can see an exposed rooftop with a guard patrolling and another to the right of it. The one on the right has both door and window access to the interior building. This is only made painstakingly obvious by the red visible through that open window. And because of the use of lighting, we can see how we get there. The exposed rooftop on the left has a pathway up to a ledge which will bring us directly to the open window. And because we're already on top of the roof, it's as easy as blinking across and staying hidden. But alternatively, there is a path to the far right that takes you through an abandoned building. The path is just as viable and comes at actually a much lower risk as there's no enemies to bypass. And in a clever bit of level design, by taking the less obvious path, you get a rune. And of course, this is not an exhaustive list of ways to enter the Golden Cap, as this barely scratches the surface. But I'll leave it up to you to find out and enjoy in your own time. In conclusion, the visual design of Dishonored is connected masterfully with its mechanics and with its setting. Dunwall is ultimately a city on the knife's edge of both a technological revolution and also a city that is collapsing underneath the weight of the rat plague. And as Corvo Rotana, you will spend most of your time looking down on the city from up high and planning your next move.